That's Paul. We're going to do a full race bike build on this R6.
Vehicle reversing.
I'm John, that's Paul. This is P3 Tuning Park, and we've got a full race bike build to do on that R6.
All the fields are gone. Fella stopped me on the street last night. Said everything's alright. Roller coaster, make it through the day. I'm right. It seems your meal ticket is gone, but life goes on.
That was take 45, by the way. So this is for our good friend Hammy of HMY Customs. He's also the team manager of MOTO RAPIDO. This is his new R6 track day toy to go along with the last build that we've done for him. So we're going to throw quite a few bits on. So John's going to get on with mapping and race tools in a minute, which is pit limiter, quick shifter blipper, and auto warm-up with an angry dog. We've also got a couple of bits and bobs from Pro Fiber, spring arm covers, fiberglass enlarged duct with the fairing mount, frame covers as well as the tank protectors, front mud guard. We've also got quite a package from Bonamici, so obviously because we're doing the flash, we're going to turn off the key. So we're going for the race top yoke or triple clamp, race fuel fillet. We've gone for the chain adjusters, clip-ons because we like the Bonamici clip-ons, Jet Prime race buttons as well, Smart Motor Pearl Valve blank, and captive spacers from Spider Racing. Anything else? DNA filter.
DNA filter as well, yeah.
And I think that is everything, so we're going to crack on and get it done in a day.
That's the time. It's 11:30. This has got to be finished by 4:30. It's not like do this as a challenge because we'll fail.
Let's go and get a white monster.
All right. Yeah, let's get on with doing the base run. Base runs, let's do it. Get the base runs done now and see what we're currently making, and then we can blow it all apart and do the million things that we've got to try and do. Then we'll get it back on here and then go through the mapping process. So we'll essentially do all of the chassis stuff. So it's already got clip-ons, but we're going to swap them out. We've got the top yoke to go on there. We'll swap all that out. We'll do the captive wheel spaces and all of that type of stuff while it's off, just because it's easier. And then once it's back on the dyno, that's it. Then it can stay on there until we're finished. Woo! Lots to do. Let's go. ECU's off now, getting red. We've done the base run. It's not terrible, it's just a little bit here, there and all over the place. So I'm not sure if it has been flashed before, but we're gonna dig into that anyway. And it makes no odds because we've got to flash it to be able to activate race tools, so one way or another we need to be able to flash it. So that's all done. It does everything it's supposed to be doing, which is always a nice thing because sometimes we'll dig in and all of a sudden we've got problems. So thankfully we're okay, the start's okay. So now it's get it off, get it blown apart, and then do all of the ancillary bits. Then we will then reload it and then get cracking. So let's pull it off. That's not my problem. The problem is the cameraman's supposed to be putting the paddock stand on it. First things first, what we're going to do is pop these onto these Bonamici chain adjusters. So we're going to take off the original block. These are much more accurate than these because you've got to try and go off the little notches in the swing arm. and then the little marking on the plate or at the back of the actual adjuster block. It's not that accurate. These are much more accurate. They click as you adjust them in and out, so you can be bob on. The importance of that is actually because what you want to try and do is keep the shaft, the actual spindle, and the crankshaft parallel. If they're not parallel and it's slightly twisted, it increases wear on the chain and the sprockets and stuff. It also loses power. So it's actually really important to make sure that all your shafts are in parallel. So spindles, front and back, and then obviously the crank as well. So this is actually pretty important. You can set it up with lasers as well, which we do sometimes, but we may check it, but it hasn't had a bang this, so it should be fine, but we'll check. So that's that, and then we've also got these captive wheel spacers. So the captive wheel spacers is, if you look down the profile of them, see it's got this little lip. That lip basically hooks on the inside of the dust seal. So the seal that sits right on the edge of the rim, that'll basically hook in there, so it's just one less thing, and it's got that chamfer. So having that little taper at the top means that it's going to be much easier to slide the wheel in, and you don't have to mess around putting spacers in. So especially if you're doing track days, which is obviously the point of this, it's going to make it so much easier to do tyre changes. So let's do it. Problem number one. Obviously this was bound to happen, especially since I said it was going so smoothly. Right, he had originally, the lad who owns it had these hooks on the other way around. Now they're supposed to go this way around, and the reason for that is this higher point on the actual fork, on the paddock stand hook, rests underneath it, so it's its arm, and then it lifts it up, and then once it's in the V, it's safe. It doesn't need such a big one on this side. It just makes it safer when you first hook it on to put on the paddock stand. So they've got to go this way around, so you have the higher bit on the front. That's fine, however, it's now in the way of the spindle. So the purpose of paddock stand bobbins, realistically, is so you can put them on a paddock stand and then you can change the wheels over, especially for track days, and you can't do that because you just can't slide these out. Now, all being well, when we fit the Bonamici ones, it's going to be a slightly different position, but the spindle is still going to hit, it's still going to foul on it. Can't leave it like that. It's a pain for me to do it now, so what I'm actually going to do is, this has two mounting positions for these. I mean, it can be either for them or it can be for shark fin or whatever, or a different accessory. Now, we are going to use this mounting with the GB Racing bobbins, because the GB Racing bobbins have got a shoulder on them. So you see it's got a longer section, which means it'll sit further away from the swing arm and then it'll clear. So we're going to fit them there, remove the R and G ones, and then we can actually take the wheel on and off easily, and same for the customer when he gets to the track. He doesn't have to mess around, and he doesn't have these on the opposite way around, which means it's more likely for it to be dropped off the paddock stand when he's first oiking it up after he's been out on track. Let's do that then.
Whoever's done these has made these extremely fucking tight. On everything.
Yep.
Now we just want to rest that down a little bit. A belly pan.
Doddle. Always
Yeah,
put a little bit of Loctite on them. I'm not being funny, that bolt's like 16,000 miles long.
We're obviously going to fit better ducts, so as you can see, they don't really flow that well. I don't know if you can, let me put some light down there for you and show you. So, I don't know how well you can see. It's not much, but it's a bit obstructed. Obviously it's not great for flow, so we want the most amount of air getting in there as possible. John can't sing, by the way. And he likes to sing, or as I like to refer to as, he likes to scream random tunes. So if it's not obvious what I'm doing, we're getting all the front end off, do it all in one go. So first half of the duct, as you can see, a little bit messy. See that a bit better now, the obstructions, so we'll get that off. That piece comes off as well because it's all one unit. And then we've got the new fairing bracket mount as well for the existing nose cone. And I might as well take the front mudguard off while I'm there. And yeah, clip-ons. Chain.
Other thing that's pretty good as well whenever you're changing stuff over to track bike is the 90 valves for the tyres, because as soon as you've got tyre warmers on and you're off and on track all the time, also the disc gets red hot, you've got to check your tyre pressures really quickly. Having the 90 valve in there is going to make it much quicker, much easier to do the tyre pressures checks before you go out. So these are, and they're not expensive, they're only a couple of quid. So we just basically cut these off. We're going to, when we change the tyre back over after we've done the dyno work, we'll fit these so that you've got them on. Hudson, do you agree? Yeah, loves them. We've got 2.5 hours. It's going to take me 2 hours to map it. It'll take me 2 hours to fit the race tools and all the wiring and stuff, so.
Front end update. All mudguards off. Much better, pretty mudguard going on. But it looks alright, Dom.
Don't have it? Okay.
Of course it has.
Super easy to fit the Bonamici chain adjusters. It's literally just undo your original adjuster bolt, throw your block in the bin, and then you just got one bolt that then holds it on. Make sure you use a little bit of Loctite, and then there is a saddle that goes on the inside that then holds it against the actual swing arm. And that's it, sorted, easy. So when you come to adjust them, you literally just adjust them as per your little markings on the top. So easy, they're super simple to use. And they look pretty. More problems. The problems now are basically the ABS pump has been relocated and it's just here. This was held on by a cable tie onto a little plastic panel that's a here with a little air duct baffle plate thing. All in all, that cannot sit there. I mean, yeah. It can't be there. Especially on one little cable tie holding it in one position, it's just going to rattle around. That, and they weigh a lot. These ABS pumps, this is hefty. So every time you're braking, accelerating, changing position, that thing's going to be just swinging around, beating the death out of everything. And what is there? A radiator. Do you know what a radiator is made out of? Aluminium. It's very thin, very easy damaged, and there's a fucking cannonball next to it that's going to be beating the death out of it. Unbelievable. So unfortunately that we can't leave that where it is. So we're going to have to remove the ABS pump, and then we're going to fit a dongle that basically completely deletes that. So one, we save a little bit of weight. Two, we don't decimate a radiator with this thing. I mean, it's heavy, that. And then you've got all the bolts in there as well. It's literally a weapon of radiator destruction. Can't have that. It's going to be a carnage. I mean, who thought that could be there? It's just, oh. So we'll sort that out, get that all neatened up. It is something that we didn't anticipate, so we've got to get one of them and get that on. Next thing as well is, while we're here, there's a pair valve kit that we're going to be fitting. So on this, there's these little things that look like chimneys. These actually are a fresh air injection system that bleeds air from the airbox straight into the exhaust port after combustion. So basically, we're going to completely cap that as well. They have silicon these up, but I don't like them. They look a little bit half-arsed. So I'm not in the game of half-arsing it. It's got to be right. So we're going to completely remove them, put our blanking kit on them, and then we can start to build up this back up again. The air baffles that are on the plastic housing as well. These. So the way this works, this just sits in here. It locks in the front and then clicks in at the back. Now these basically slow some of the air down as it goes into the airbox. So the airbox fits on here and it seals against this piece. We actually take these off because these air baffle ducts are basically there to quieten down the intake noise. We don't care about intake noise. Couldn't give a toss. I mean, we're going power, baby. So they're coming off and it'll smooth that up so we can have, I mean, what's the point in buying a really fancy dancy carbon fiber intake duct and then having them big stupid flappy things in the middle of your intake? That's crap. So we're going to cut them off. We completely seal these so it flows the air straight into the airbox better. It did have an MWR filter in there as well. We're actually going to replace that with a DNA, mainly because we actually like the DNA products a bit better than the MWR. They're also better at servicing, so that longevity-wise, it's a much better product for this application. No offense to MWR. So we're going to change that out to DNA, and then we're going to start to build the bike back up. Then we're going to start doing the lacing of the switch gear. We're going to change the top yoke, which we're going to do next as well. We did test this as well. So this baffle, we did do a test years ago because they've had this design for quite a while. And we did see on our dyno, on our back-to-back test, we did gain 2 brake horsepower by cutting these off. It's not huge, but we did see a difference purely on doing that. So we've kind of put that into our normal mod on the R6s, so that's why we will do it. Straight, this is the intake. So that's what it's like right now. Hi. And then when you fit that, you can see how restrictive that makes it. Just quietens down the intake. So that's the duct removed. So you can see now it's just nice and nice and smooth straight through. When you look in there, there's no restrictions at all. So it just means that the air is not going to be disrupted at all. It'll just go straight through and hit the air filter membrane rather than being diverted around and then pushed to the side. Because if you imagine normally, you've got these big scooped fins. So all the air has to scoop around the side, hit this baffle, and then it'll just be more turbulent inside. Now it'll be just a lot smoother, a lot flatter before it hits that panel filter. Way better. Right, we've got the yoke is now off. Top yoke is off. The clip-ons are all off. All of the switch gear is now removed. We're nearly at the point of starting to actually rig up the intake duct. The intake duct is a little bit complicated because of the way the key was originally, which this is going to be keyless. So the actual key lock itself was getting in the way and it was fouling on where the duct is going to be. So we just needed a complete clear run at being able to attach everything. So we are now at this position where we've got 0 things. It's now just a case of because the way that the fiberglass and carbon fiber bits are made sometimes is you have to be able to kind of set them all up and then attach them together to each individual piece. So you've got the actual trunk, the actual the front duct, and then you've got the clock bracket. Now the clock bracket has to mount to the intake duct, and to be able to make sure everything's perfectly aligned, it's basically a case of mock everything up loosely, including the fairing, and then position it, make pilot holes or markings or whatever, and then strip it all back down, put it all back together again, and then try to make sure it's absolutely perfect. Which is a bit tricky because we haven't got much time to get this all done, so it's a case of just move quickly. So the pair blanking kit is on, the little air ducts have been removed, and we've got all of the bits that were taken off, and now we can start getting the duct in all rigged up and set up, and the clock bracket all sorted. Clock bracket also is a little bit tricky as well because where it mounts, it's got on the original one, as you can see, you've got these 3 rubber bungs, so they also need to be moved over onto this. So you can see that that's roughly what that looks like. So we've basically got to make sure that these are in the exact right positions, and then we can drill them to the size of whatever that inside is, and then we can then transpose those rubbers onto that, and then we can stick it all together. You can see what I mean. You've got like three little telltales on that duct, but there's nothing on this, so you need to basically make sure that everything's rigged up and in position before you then drill this, because otherwise your clocks are going to be all kind of pissed, and then your duct isn't going to fit properly, because you can imagine your fairings are mounted on here, but then the fairing also has to slip onto that intake duct. So it can be a little bit of a juggle to be able to make sure that everything fits. So the easiest thing to do is to just mock it up first and then final fit. Yeah, so that's what we're going to do now. So we've now got the duct on, and the way we've had to do this is because you can't just go purely off the references of their dots, the little markings that are on there. You're better off making your own and making sure it's perfect, or as perfect as you can get it. These aren't 100% perfect ever anyway. But you put a bit of masking tape on here, then hold it against it where it needs to be. Now as well on this, we had to actually sculpt it for underneath the yoke there. You've got a stop. That stop is for your steering lock. And because of the way it works, you've got to cut a little arc clearance in it, which you just use a Dremel for. Just cut that arc out, and then that can locate a bit better and it won't foul the steering. That's that. So that was the underneath. Then you got it to slide on. Then tape this, make your little markings where the drillings are on the actual front of the frame. Then all I did is a little bit of tape on the actual frame, and then mark where this finishes, and then measure back from that line to where the hole is. Then mark that again on the actual duct, and then that's going to be your drill position. So one mark where the actual height is going to be, and then one mark for the depth. So the height is obviously, as I say, when you just hold it up against it, you'll see where the bolt is before you slide it all the way on. Mark on the tube. Then once you've got it all the way on, another little mark on a bit of tape on the frame, and then measure that back. Once you take the duct back away, measure back from that mark to the center of the hole in the frame. Then mark in on the duct that amount. That's going to be your center point to drill. Drill them both sides. And then the other thing as well as with these is the way this frame is, these bolt holes are actually recessed in, so they're like slightly countersunk. There's like bits that are slightly proud, and because of that, it means that if you just clamp down on bolts on this, it will crack it, because obviously it is fiberglass or carbon. I think it's carbon Kevlar, I think. Anyway, whatever material, you'll crack it. So what you basically need to do then is put little spaces in, which is also really fun, because how are you going to hold them in there? It's impossible. So we had another solution for that, because we also seal it. So what we use to seal it is we'll use this, which is just expandable foam. So it's just basically draft excluder. And then just cut this to shape, put it on, and then use the stickiness of this to stick the spaces that we're running on the frame, and then do it all the way around so it completely seals it, because otherwise you do have quite big gaps, because you can see stick your finger in there. That's no bueno. So it's just going to mean that you're going to leak tons of air. Now the original one does actually seal against the frame, so we're going to try our best. It's not going to be perfect, but we're going to try our best to do what we can to seal it a bit as well. But using the draft excluder helps that, and then also helps to stick the spaces on, and then Loctite them in. So once we've re-bolted it back up, bit of Loctite, off we go. So Loctite is just the blue 242. And then hopefully it won't fall off with vibrations. Sorted. Top yokes on. Now we're just going to position these just rough for now. We'll do it properly once everything else is on. Quick tip, whenever you're doing top yokes and you're changing top yokes, it's actually really can be a bit of a pain to get the stem nut to line up with the actual fork legs. So the way to do it actually is to basically bounce the front wheel, or just rock the bike. If it's in a front wheel chock like on a bench, if you pull the bike forward, you'll see the actual forks move, and that'll allow you to just slide it on. Other thing as well is tighten the top yoke, the actual top nut up before you do your pinch bolts, just in case the top yoke isn't completely sat down properly. Whereas by tightening this up first, it will make sure that it's sat down, and then you can do the pinch bolts. In this case, we're gonna have to take this back off again, because this is actually the mount for the tank. But just to make sure that it's locked in position first, tighten this up, then do your pinch bolts, then you can take that back off.
One day later.
The position that we're in now is the switch gears mostly in. These aren't completely tight yet, because we might need to position these a little bit better. We did all the ducting, so that's all on. This is a bit complicated with these because of the fact that you've got map sensors and temp sensors and everything like that to be able to fit, and then make sure that it doesn't do. It's not, if I'm honest, it could do with being a bit stronger, but that's done. We're also gone keyless with it, which has posed a little bit of a complication on this, because the actual main power wires have quite a little bit of amperage, so the wire thickness is pretty thick. It's quite high gauge. So because of that, I didn't want to run them to these, because these little switches are not the best in the world. It can't actually handle much more than like a couple of amps. 10 amps is absolute max. So it's okay for rain lights and stuff, but if you're running them for switches, it could probably do with it being something bigger. But in this situation, what we've done is we've ran a relay. So on this side now, it's not the tidiest because there's a lot of wires there, but we've done our best. But basically now we've fitted a relay switch where we'd normally have the key. And then this will allow us to turn everything on without it burning itself out, because you've got the main power feed circuit, and then you've also got the light circuit, which is just for the switch. I say light circuit, that's going to be confusing. Then you've got light amperage, low work circuit, which is just to activate this. So all it does is it excites a little electromagnet inside this relay that then latches the big one, which actually turns everything on. That way round, it's a safety device. This is a 30 amp relay anyway. So it's a safety switch, so it means that you're able to turn it on and off without having big amperage going through this switch and burning the switch out or setting fire to the bike. So we had that all done, ducting's all done. Got a lot of the carbon frame guards on. We've still got to do the swing arm and a few other little bits like the tank and stuff. But we're at the point where the race tools is now fitted as well. So we've got we've swapped out the sensor. So it did actually already have a quick shifter on it, and it's the OE. It was the OE function through the ECU, but it had a translogic sensor. But for whatever reason, that wasn't working at all. So either way, it doesn't matter because we replace it when we're doing the race tools. So the race tools allow quick shifter, auto blipper, launch control, pit lane, and auto warm up. So because of that, it kind of defuncts the original stuff. So that's now fitted. It's super simple on this because it's literally where the exhaust control valve fits. You just basically just bridge straight into that. So the exhaust control valve is obsolete on this anyway because it's running a full race system. But we use that. If you did have an exhaust control valve, it does make it a little bit more problematic. But if you've got one, why? Take it off. So that's sorted. So that's done. All the wiring's as neat as these can get. We've put a DNA filter in it. The pair valve's capped. Tons of other stuff that I've forgotten. Now we're going to try and get it running. So tank go on now, get it running. And then from there, we've actually already flashed the ECU as well. Then we'll get some runs in and see where we're going. And there's just some other aesthetic-y things. So let's do that. And if you look tired, it's because I am fucking tired. Starting with the base run, all good there. We checked a few other things out and made sure we, basically you run kind of like interference to make sure that everything's doing what it's supposed to be doing, which to be fair, the bike was okay, no big problems. Then blew it all apart and then started to fit everything. So we've done the intake baffle delete. We've obviously fitted the intake trumpet. Now, some of that you didn't see. So basically like the bolts, positioning all this and everything and getting it onto the fairings. These can be a little bit tricky. And also you don't want them to protrude too far inside. So we actually cut every single bolt down to make sure it was really smooth inside. We've also had the map sensor, the intake air pressure sensor and the temp sensor is also going to be bolted in there as well. So it's a case of taking your time to drill all the holes for that and make sure that it's all completely clean before you obviously stick it all back together again. We've got the DNA air filter in there. With fuel cap, yeah. Someone said fuel cap. So we've got a couple of the Bobbins bits. So this Bobbins fuel filler, the very sexy top yoke. the clip-ons, the jet prime switches. So we've got the right and left. We've also gone completely keyless on this, which, as I've mentioned before, was a bit interesting because of the fact that it runs high grade stuff. We have to have this. So that's our power on. Oh yeah. So that's our main power switch. It would have been nice if we did integrate, had an extra button, but we didn't. So that's where we are. Quick shifter and the whole race tools package has been fitted. So you've got obviously all the bits and bobs that you've just seen. All the carbon fiber frame protection. So that was on the swing arm and on the frame. So they look really nice. I mean, they're just, they look really good, but they actually do a good job as well. So if you ever get a bit of gravel rash on them, then, or to protect it before gravel rash, not that you ever want that, but they'll protect the frame, but it also look really, really cool. The bottom meter chain adjusters, which will just make life of doing tire changes and stuff that much easier. The swap over of the bobbins from the RNG to the GB Racing purely because of the fact that we had a little bit of a clearance issue. And there's probably 50 other things that I've done that I've completely forgotten because I did them at midnight. But all in all, it's really good. We're really happy with that. The power is really good. It's really smooth. The quick shifter and blipper on this is phenomenal. Yeah, front wheel guard as well, actually. So we went from 107 to 122 power, which this should be in the 120s. I mean, I think the original power run was probably a little bit low for a few different reasons, but nothing horrendous. But obviously the little bits of mods that we've done to everything, and then it's picked itself right back up again. I mean, opening up that intake and then putting a slightly better intake air filter on there as well, our personal preferred air filter on there as well. It just helps it. But yeah, it's really good, really good. Nice bike it is, love them. Really good track bike. Nice light, flippable, screams. Great. Oh yeah, oh, and domino grips, because we swapped out the other ones for these. So you got, oh yeah, and then even sexy little covers as well, so that they don't get dirty. Because the worst thing in the world is you buy your grips, and grips are like one of them things where you really love them because they look really fresh, and then you grub your hands all over them, it ruins them. And then you can't really clean them. I mean, you can use like brake cleaner and stuff, but it destroys them over time. So get a set of clean grips. They're not expensive. They're on our shop, 10 quid, boom, get them. And then you'll never need to worry about dirty grips ever again. Sorted. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video today, check out all the other stuff. Like and subscribe. And then if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments. See you in the next one.